If you're anything like me, and you have a dog, you've probably had this thought. I just wish they could live a little bit longer, right? It's a universal feeling. We all want more quality time with our best friends. But what if we could actually unlock the secrets to making that happen? Well, today, we're going to dive into the science that might just make it possible.
So it really begs the question, why do some dogs live so much longer than others? I mean, it seems like a simple question, but the answer is incredibly complex. You've probably seen it yourself. Two dogs, same breed, and yet one lives for years longer than the other. Is it just luck, or is there something more going on under the surface? Well, today we're going to explore the science that's trying to answer that exact question.
Okay, check out this number, 15.6 years. Now, for a Labrador Retriever, their typical lifespan is around 12 years, so living to 15.6, that's truly remarkable. We're not just talking about a little bit longer. That is a significant leap. And the cool thing is, scientists are starting to figure out exactly why some dogs hit these incredible milestones.
You know, there's actually a scientific term for this. It's called exceptional longevity. Basically, it's the term for dogs that live a whopping 30% longer than their breed's typical lifespan. So we're not just talking about adding a few months here. This is about fundamentally extending a healthy life. The big question is, how do they do it?
All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. We're going to explore this longevity puzzle from the outside in. First, we'll look at lifestyle and how it affects lifespan. Then, we'll zoom in and see if there's a cellular fountain of youth. And finally, we'll get right down to the genetic level and try to decode longevity's blueprint before we talk about what this all means for the future.
Okay, let's start with the big picture, the stuff we can actually see and, maybe even manage. There's this groundbreaking study on Labrador Retrievers that gives us some incredible clues.
So, for over a decade, researchers followed this group of 39 labs. Now, the key here was control. All of these dogs lived in really similar conditions, and their diet was carefully managed to keep them at an ideal weight. And why is that so important? Well, it allowed the scientists to really isolate the other factors that might be affecting how long they live.
And you know what they found? It was surprisingly clear. The dogs that lived the longest were just better at two things as they got older. First, maintaining their lean body mass. We're talking muscle. And second, slowing down how much body fat they packed on. So it's not just about the number on the scale, it's about body composition.
This chart really spells it out for us. On one side, you've got the dogs with an expected or average lifespan. You can see they gained fat and lost muscle more quickly as they aged. But then you look at the long-lived, the exceptional dogs, and it's a different story. They had a much slower rate of fat gain, and they held on to their precious muscle for a lot longer.
And, the researchers themselves summed it up perfectly. They said that this lifelong maintenance of lean body mass and slowing down fat accumulation were key factors in living longer. It wasn't just one thing, but this really powerful combination. And that's a huge insight because it's something we can actually influence.
Okay, so keeping a dog lean is what we see on the outside. But what's driving these differences on a much, much smaller scale? What's happening deeper inside? Let's zoom in to the cellular level. All right, now we're going to look inside the engine room, so to speak. How do the very cells of these long-lived dogs actually behave differently?
Really, it all comes down to something called cellular metabolism. That's just the process of how cells turn food into energy. And we already have a clue here. We know that cells from smaller, longer-lived dog breeds have a different metabolic profile than cells from larger, shorter-lived breeds. So that leads to a really interesting question. Could we influence that profile with some of these new anti-aging compounds?
Well, a group of scientists decided to find out. They took skin cells, fibroblasts to be specific, from dogs, grew them in a lab, and then treated them with three compounds that have been getting a lot of buzz for their anti-aging potential: metformin, resveratrol, and rapamycin. Then they simply measured what happened to the cell's energy production. So while they tested all three, it was one in particular, rapamycin, that had the most dramatic and, frankly, the most interesting effect on how the cells generated energy. But here's where it gets really fascinating. The effect wasn't the same for all dogs. Check this out. When they treated cells from large breed puppies with rapamycin, their maximum energy production went up a lot. But when they treated cells from older small breed dogs with the exact same drug, their energy production went down. This is a huge clue. It suggests that treatments like this might need to be started early in life and could be way more beneficial for larger breeds. Really fascinating stuff for future therapy.
So, we've looked at the whole dog, we've looked at its cells. Now it's time to go to the deepest level possible, the instruction manual itself. We're talking about the DNA.
So how do you even begin to find the specific genes for a long life? Well, scientists use this incredibly powerful tool called a genome-wide association study, or GWAS for short. The easiest way to think about it is like this. Imagine the entire dog genome is a giant treasure map. A GWAS scans that whole map, looking for tiny little markers that are way more common in the long-lived dogs. It's basically a high-tech hunt for genetic treasure.
And this crazy-looking chart is called a Manhattan plot, and it basically shows the results from one of these treasure hunts in Cavalier King Charles Spaniels. Every single dot is a genetic marker, and the higher the dot, the more strongly it's linked to living past 13 years old. So those tall skyscrapers, those are the hot spots. They're literally pointing scientists to the parts of the map where the treasure is buried.
And here it is. This is the treasure they found. After digging into those hotspots on the map, they identified these 9 specific genes. These are now the top candidates for explaining why some Cavaliers are just genetically predisposed to a longer life. This is the blueprint we've been looking for.
Okay, so we've looked at the body, the cell, and the gene. What does it all mean when we put the pieces together? Let's zoom back out and look at the big picture.
So what are the big takeaways here? Well, at the lifestyle level, it's clear. Maintaining a lean body composition is absolutely critical, and it's something we, as owners, can control. Zooming in to the cellular level, we're starting to see the potential for future treatments that could one day help optimize metabolism for healthier aging. And finally, down at the genetic level, we're not just guessing anymore. We are beginning to pinpoint the actual genes that give some dogs a head start in life.
And you know, this brings us to what might be the most important concept of all, health span. See, the goal isn't just about extending lifespan. It's not just about adding more years. It's about increasing the number of years spent in good health, full of energy and free from chronic disease. It's about more good years with our companions. And all of this research, from diet all the way down to DNA, is aimed at that one single goal.
Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on. You know, dogs share our homes, our environment, and unfortunately, many of our same age-related diseases. So as we get better and better at decoding their longevity and extending their health span, what will we learn about our own? Could the key to a longer, healthier life for us actually be found in our very best friends?